WFM 91.7.
Good morning, Nigerians. You're welcome on Women Radio, WFM 91.7. How are you doing today? I hope your day is going on just fine. Yes, if you're joining this conversation, we are live on Twitter at WFM 917. Do also join the conversation as we get to discuss an important subject today. My name is Esther Alaribe, and today we're discussing 1 year after victory on 35% affirmative action. Today, Thursday, April 6, 2023, marks 1 year since the laudable judgment on the 35% affirmative action, which was granted in favor of Nigerian women by Honorable Justice D.U. Okorowo of the Federal High Court in Abuja. Now, this is after Nigerian Women Trust Fund and 8 other co-plaintiffs filed a suit seeking interpretation and implementation of the provisions of the National Gender Policy 2006. Now, Nigerian women won this, but following the judgment, an appeal was filed by the Ministry of Justice, though a stay of execution was not effected, thereby still bounding the federal government to this judgment. Today we're having to discuss implementation, demands of Nigerian women from the 10th National Assembly, and the appointment of women in the incoming administration. What does this mean for us? My name is Esther Alaribe, and joining me in the conversation, I have Mufuliyat Fijabi, CEO, Nigerian Women Trust Fund. Good morning, Mufuliyat.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you for joining us too. Also, we have Ngozi Nwosujuba, Project Director of Vision Spring Initiatives. Good morning, Ngozi. How are you doing today?
Good morning and thank you. Hello, good morning, Nigerians.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for joining us. All right. So while we await Barrister Marshal Abubakar, Director of Human Rights, Falana and Falana Chambers, joining us in this conversation, Mufuliyat, what does this date and this judgment mean to you and for Nigerian women as well?
I want to hinge it on the back of the just concluded elections in some of the states and across the federation, and some of the percentages that we have already started seeing in terms of emergence of women as elected representatives. This is a call, to the fact that Nigerian women need all the support, need all the enabling environment to be able to participate meaningfully and successfully well in leadership positions, whether appointive or elective. The 35% affirmative judgment victory is a victory that is an indication that women actually have a right and should be accepted as leaders who can make meaningful impact into the development of the country. And of course, the judgment is not one that is hinged on in vacuum. It is one that is based on a policy that the government itself adopted since 2006 and has been reviewed recently. So this means that the judgment is a call on the government to take necessary steps to ensure that in its appointments, in its efforts to have people serve the country, that there should be a political will to national gender policy and to also include women, as equal experts, as equal participants, as qualified Nigerians who can chart a new path for the development of the country. So this judgment remains an historical judgment for Nigerian women, and it can only be further complemented if the government obeys the ruling of the court. For us, we feel that the government is not doing well for Nigerian women if this judgment continues to be appealed and is not implemented. We've seen appointments since this judgment came into life since last year that are not reflective of the court ruling. And this is an absolute disobedience to the court. And we hope that with this 1 year anniversary, we would not have to sweat so much to get a court ruling. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mufuliyat, for that. In case you're just joining us, yes, we're discussing 1 year after since the judgment on the 35% affirmative action was granted in favor of Nigerian women by the Federal High Court in Abuja after Nigerian Women Trust Fund and 8 co-plaintiffs filed a suit seeking interpretation and implementation of the provisions of the National Gender Policy 2006 for women. Yes, we're having to talk about an appeal that was filed by the Ministry of Justice, and we're having to call on the government to look into this. What do we expect from the 10th National Assembly, the incoming administration as well? What does it hold for women? Now, I'm moving over to Ngozi Nwosujuba, Project Director of Vision Spring Initiatives. Ngozi, since this judgment a year ago, how would you say our political space has accepted this, looking at the just concluded election as a case study?
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Ibe, and thank you, dear listeners. I must start by sympathizing with everyone, all the women and men who died during the last elections that happened in Nigeria, and all the violence that happened, and all the things that Nigerians are going through at the moment. It was really very disappointing to come out in the way we did in 2023. And so so at times we speak about body language, there's how people behave, and then that they are really committed to commitments that they have made. And I think that looking at Nigerians' body the body statement of Nigeria, we are not ready for women's leadership, and that's so unfortunate. Because if an institution such as the Ministry of Justice that was actually set up to ensure that justice prevails in a country are the ones that are challenging a law, challenging a judgment that seeks to bring 35% of Nigerians, who contribute to the economy of the nation, who have been tried and tested and trusted in other climes, other countries, and they've been found doing very well. If such an agency can, speak, or try to speak against such judgment, is rather unfair. And as I was saying, even looking at what happened in this last 2023 elections, I didn't see any conscious effort, either by political parties or the governments themselves, to push, to see that the national gender policy, that women, that this law, that this judgment works in favor of women, and that's all political parties. Because even as I speak, I think it's only just one political party that there is looking like a woman might emerge, and we're still not there. And so we have these beautiful things that the government of Nigeria puts in the national gender policy. As Madam Mufliat has said, we had 2006. Now we have it has been now updated to run from 2021 to 2026. That's close to when the SDGs, would have been reviewed in 2030. We are not there yet. I think that from inception of leadership since 1999, in all, we haven't had 10% participation of women, and that doesn't speak well for Nigeria. And that's why I'm speaking and saying that we are not doing well with regards to women's leadership and participation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ngozi, for your comment on that one. Yes, we're expecting Barrister Marshall Abubakar to join us as we get to speak to him to understand the implication, the legal implication of this, if an appeal is if this stands, what it means for Nigerian women, and going forward, what we expect. Now, in case you're just joining us, this is Women Radio, WFM 91.7, and this conversation, we're having to talk about 1 year after victory on 35% affirmative action. We're live on Twitter, and you can drop your comment in the comment section on Twitter, and we'll be sure to take all of your comments. You have any question for the panelists, and they would take your comments as well. Barrister Marshall, we've sent you the speaker. Please do accept. We've sent you the mic. Please do accept so we can make you a speaker. Now, Mufuliat, the fact that we have just 3 women who have emerged in the Senate this time around from the election, what do you think would happen differently? I mean, looking at the 9th Assembly, we had 8 women and not a lot was achieved, and now we have 3 women. What do you think?
Thank you, Esther. It's a very strong question to know how I feel. I feel there's an imbalance. There's a gender imbalance in the Senate. We have that in this current Senate, the 9th Assembly. So for the 10th Assembly, it means that the 3 women cannot even match the kind of participation that would need to get Nigeria to where we need to be. It means that we're running a democracy that is exclusive of gender, that is not inclusive of women. We may think that it shouldn't matter, but truly it matters because it means that there won't be gender perspective in the decisions that will be taken at that level. We hope that there will be gender champions from amongst the men who will complement the efforts of the three women that are part of the Senate in the 10th Assembly. But this is not enough. When we talk about gender perspective, it goes beyond just having women at the table. It has to do with practicing a democracy that is truly inclusive, that understands the gender benchmarks and gender implications around decisions taken at that level. Yes, the National Assembly has to do with legislating laws, but there are other social aspects to laws, that requires gender input, to have laws that are truly responsive to the needs of Nigerians. And when countries run democratic processes that are gender explicit, that there is also a cost to it. We've seen quite a number of UN index analysis and the cost implication of not having a gender balanced system. We talk of security, we talk of economic development, we talk of health issues. All of this require gender perspectives to them. And this has to do, of course, with the deliberate efforts that we as a country, led by the government, make to ensure that we have a system in place that truly meets our needs and aspirations. So I know that it's not just me. A lot of Nigerians, not just women, are not happy that three women emerged, and this should also serve as a wake-up call, for the incoming government to ensure that the court judgment is respected. It shouldn't be something that we are pursuing the government to do, as we are doing currently now, by ensuring that they implement the policy that the government has adopted. And the Nigeria's national gender policy is actually a reflection of some of those regional and international conventions that the government of our country, Nigeria, has signed on to. Talking about the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, talking about the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, talking about the Beijing Platform for Action, and honestly, at the African regional level also, there are very strong conventions, regional documents that the government has signed on to. So talking about 35% affirmative action and this landmark judgment is not out of place, especially considering the antecedents of Nigeria in signing some of those regional documents. I think it only behoves us to enhance the democratic process with just three women at the Senate, by obeying these judgments and by removing all barriers to its full implementation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mufilat, for your thoughts on that one. All right, Ngozi, let me ask you now, what do you expect to see from the 10th National Assembly?
I can start from where Mufilat stopped. I think there's generally a lack of commitment on the part of our government with regards to what they have signed. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, great. So it's totally a lack of commitment. So if we had 8 women now against 3 women, what does that say to us? If men are, they can't represent women the way women would represent themselves. And so in terms of lawmaking, it's going to be difficult for our issues to get into to be in the front radar. For instance, we saw how we went to the National Assembly when doing the constitutional review. Everything that women stood for, all the other points that we wanted in favor of women, everything was turned down. And who was there to speak for us? And now we are speaking about moving from A to B. That's really abysmal and it's such a shame. So for instance, in Rwanda already we have like almost 50% women's participation. So when you have spaces like that, you can hear women speak about the issues that concern them. My position, we do a lot of work around sexual and reproductive health and rights. And so which man in that space will speak about young people's sexual and reproductive health and rights? What would they know about it? What would they know about menstrual hygiene, for instance? So what it means is that we are women's issues will not be reflected as it should, with this for, and not, at times these things are not deliberate, but men take it for granted that they understand women's issues. It's difficult. I don't understand all the issues that affect men, the way I should. Of course, they discuss it with me, I know, but I can't feel it because I'm not a man. So it's really going to be difficult. There's going to be a lot of pushback for us to get men to understand, that there are certain things that women should actually speak about that affect other women. And I gave the example of Rwanda. So for instance, what is affirmative action? Affirmative action is that you are saying that we are going to deliberately ensure that, this particular space, that we keep it for people who have been shortchanged over the years. That's what it is about. And when the government is talking about this framework, the documents that the 35% affirmative action, that's what it simply means. That's the commitment to ensure that out of 100%, we are giving women 35%. That's not a lot. So the point is that our issues will get cut off, as it already is, even with estimate there, that we might almost not be represented adequately, because some of the issues that affect women, men cannot, 100% represent us on those conversations. Yes, Esther, unfortunately.
True talk, true talk. So in that case, let's talk about the incoming administration. Yes, meanwhile, your comments are welcome. You can send in your comment. You can send us a text or a WhatsApp message if you're listening by the radio, 0703-175-6537. And if you're live on Twitter as well, you can drop your comment in the comment section and we'll be sure to take it. If you have any question for the panelists, we'll be sure to take your questions and contributions as well. Thank you so much for making our time to join this conversation today, because this is important for Nigerian women. The number of women in the Nigerian political space hasn't been encouraging, and yes, we need to keep having this conversation. All right, Mufuliat, the incoming administration, yes, I see that Nigerian Women Trust Fund put out a statement having to urge the incoming administration on what they expect on this particular one for Nigerian women, and we're having to ask how much work is to be done to get some kind of headway on this, Mufuliat.
Well, if the political will, which means commitment, is there, I don't think that having gone through the litigational process to get to this judgment, that the incoming administration should still expect us to push harder. What I would expect is that they pick up the baton and try to make the baton more inclusive by just going all the way out to accept the judgment, the content, especially for this particular incoming administration. They shouldn't expect any push from the women's group to do what they need to do the needful. In times past, we've had to lobby without any judgment backing us. We've had to talk to different stakeholders to remind them of their commitment when they make appointments, into various positions. But this time around, there's a judgment that is like a guide that they can follow through. And most importantly, the National Gender Policy is not a document that is strange. It's a document of the government. The court is only saying, obey your own document, obey your own policy that you have put in place. So the National Gender Policy is no longer just a policy document, but one backed by very strong and important judgment. So I do not expect, in all sincerity, for the incoming government to now expect groups and stakeholders to be reminding it of what it should do. Naturally, we've seen in some of their campaigns the promises, even though we've had promises in the past that were never implemented. But then I expect that they do the needful. And they should also remember that a court judgment is not to be disobeyed. There could be other litigations, that may follow if this is not obeyed. And the judgment should not be taken for granted. It should be seen as a gain for the Nigerian women, because now the law is on their side. The law is asking that the Nigerian women be protected, when it comes to what they have a right to as Nigerian citizens, and when it comes to being able to have the space to demonstrate their commitment to the political process of Nigeria. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. We have a text here, and this one is asking, what exactly do Nigerian women want in the political space? I see. Okay. Mufiliati, what's the response to that?
Hello, please come again on that.
Yes, we have a text message here, and the person is asking, what exactly do Nigerian women want in the political space?
We want access to leadership positions because we have the necessary qualifications to turn things around through our inputs, through our efforts, and through our active participation in governance in Nigeria. This has been taken for granted in years past because you find that amongst maybe 24 women members of the cabinet, maybe only 3 or 2 is female. So we want a situation whereby there's deliberate to include women in all of this decision making. Be an opportunity to represent. Currently challenged, with the rate of emergence of women as elected representative, as we have seen at the Senate, it's about 3, at the House of Reps, it's about, how can we have 14 women out of over 360 something members? It's good for the kind of democracy to practice. It's not effective. So making the participation of women in all of these spaces as a tokenism is not acceptable. And for women to have gone to court to have a judgment, that is compelling the government to obey its own policy, I think it's something that should not be taken for granted. It's a very serious matter. It means that by having that national gender policy in place, it also means that the government accepts that there is need to have equal participation of men and women. Now the government has failed to implement, and the government is being reminded by the courts, to immediately comply and implement the policy. So Nigerian women, we have the expertise, we have the qualifications to participate in leadership position. We should not be relegated to the background. We want to be ably represented. Like Ngozi mentioned earlier on, last year we had 5 bills for amendments, during the constitutional review process. All 5 bills relating to women and gender were turned down. If we had a National Assembly that is truly gender responsive, all the 5 bills being pushed for amendment were bills that would advance the kind of democracy we practice in Nigeria, but they didn't see reason with it, for no reason. If we had more women there, maybe they would have voted in support of those bills. So, in spite of that, we also had a few men who supported the bill. The majority of the men still were not comfortable with it, and they did not pass those bills. So this is not very good for our democracy. So we want our voices heard. We want our representation acknowledged and recognized. We want the society to understand that for we to have both men and women in the society, there is need for decisions that would impart on both men and women positively well. And this cannot happen if we have an all women or an all men assemblies or leadership positions. We need a good mix. We need a gender balance. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mufiliat, for your thoughts on all of this. Yes, in case you're just joining us, this is Women Radio, WFM 91.7, and we're having to discuss 1 year after victory on 35% affirmative action for Nigerian women, and we're asking, what do we expect from the incoming administration? How would the 10th National Assembly treat Nigerian women in the political space this time around, and also ensuring that this judgment that Nigerian women have rejoiced over, also that this judgment stands, that it stays and it is implemented. Yes, recall sometime last year when the Nigerian Women Trust Board and other co-plaintiffs put together a world press conference, and the Minister of Women Affairs was there, and she also spoke about it, and also given her words that President Muhammadu Buhari was going to adhere to this and also do as stated by the ruling of the court. But we haven't seen that play out. Now we have Barrister Marshall Abubakar joining us. Good morning, Barrister Marshall. How are you doing today? Good morning, Barrister Marshall. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning. I can hear you loud and clear. Good morning.
All right, good morning. So yes, we're having this conversation and we're having to ask you, what would be the legal implication to this if the appeal filed by the Ministry of Justice has to stand?
Well, I think it's quite a pleasure to be here again.
Thank you.
To start with, I observe principles. I think I should also start by commenting that as it is today, the ministry does not have a proper appeal yet. Yes, it is true they filed a notice of appeal. It is also true they've complied the records, but there's no brief before the Court of Appeal. And then talking about if the appeal will succeed on appeal, if that is what the question means, I think there's a deep one. I do not want to speculate. I also think it's not my place to start permutating as to what the judgment of the Court of Appeal will likely look like. But all things being equal, and based on the case, I think they have on their part, this possibility of that happening is quite very, extremely very slim. Okay. Because the case at the trial court was put up by us, and then the defense at the trial court was rightly evaluated, and it was discountenanced, because these are matters of laws, these are matters of constitutional provisions that the government has over the years failed to adhere to, and since all powers that are carried out by all persons and authorities in Nigeria are derived from the Constitution, and since the government failed to comply with such constitutional provisions which they subscribe to uphold, the court rightly held and ruled that they are in breach of that law, and they were compelled to comply with that law. We sought for 6 reliefs in that suit, and they were all granted, because these were issues that derive life and direct from the Constitution and from laws that the country has sought to uphold, and which has been violated. So I will not want to speculate on whether the appeal will likely succeed or not. I think it's not my place. But the chances of that, with all sense of modesty, is quite very slim. And of course, I will not want to speak further on that, because it's a judicial process that will take its full course. But I will not want to imagine such a situation. But if it does, I also think it's also imperative, because as it stands today, that judgment still subsists. That judgment has not been set aside, and there is even no application on the part of the government to set same aside or to stay the execution of same. You cannot even stay a declaratory order. The order is declaratory, so you can even apply to the court to stay it in the first place. So I think we also need to up our advocacy. This incoming government that is taking off in May has to know that there is a judgment of this nature. We also need to up our game in terms of advocacy, as reaching out, because the judgment has been observed in its breach than in compliance by the government of General Muhammadu Buhari. So I think there is a need for us to reach out and then create more influence, not just to inform them that, there is another of court. You cannot come and say that you derive powers from the Constitution to govern the country, while you violate the same Constitution that has vested in the court the authority to make decisions and to pass down judgments. You cannot talk about legitimacy, you cannot talk about the governance in a country that does not obey or adhere to its state institutions and to the laws or to the directives that is being given by the institution that is empowered under the same Constitution to hand down such judgments and such orders. So I would urge all of us to continue the advocacy, continue the drive, so that we will have the incoming administration fully comply with the judgment as it stands today, which is subsisting, which is binding, and which must be adhered to and must be complied with.
All right. Thank you so much, Barrister Abubakar, for all of this. One interesting thing that I picked up that you said was we need to continue the advocacy and the lobbying to ensure that the incoming administration actually knows what this judgment implies and also ensuring that it's being picked up. Yes, you can make comments. You're live on Twitter. You can request for the mic. I see Buki Shonibari of Invictus Africa. I also see Chama Agwegbo of Tekha. Also, I see Kiki Modi, a Nigerian journalist. If you want to make comments about this, just request for the mic and we'll send to you. And yes, you can make your comments or you can leave your comments in the comment section and we'll be sure to take them. Now, Ngozi Nwosujuba of Vision Spring Initiatives, I'm having to ask you now, taking the cue from what Barrister Masha Abubakar said, what plans are in work to ensure that this advocacy, the lobbying, because it has to start now. I mean, May 29 is just by the corner.
Okay, thank you very much. I do know that Women Radio is widely listened to, and I'm sure people are already listening to us. And this is not, as we said, this is a win for Nigerian women. And the sisters I've mentioned already are actually very active, giving us the figures, strategizing, and I think that we're going to do more of that to ensure that this judgment is implemented. I think that the reason our governments don't implement judgments, the reason they develop policies and the rest of them they don't implement is that it's a case of impunity. Because if you have a policy, what that policy is a guideline which you develop, which should guide your own actions. It was not developed by civil society, So government should be responsive by ensuring that they support their own documents. And also the law court also does not belong to civil society. It's also part of government. So if there's a judgment in favor of a particular person or a group of persons, it falls on the government, to ensure. Otherwise, people will not take us serious in Nigeria. So these judgments would do all within our power to ensure that it's implemented. We as women are tired of tokenism. We want free and fair elections. The elections were, as I mentioned earlier on, was not really very encouraging. Many young people, women and men died. It's scary. It makes people who don't want to participate, and that's really bad. I think that political parties should stop what they are doing. They should ensure that they have adequate. Let that 35% affirmative action start from everyone that recognizes that women's participation is not because we are just women. It's because we are humans, because we have something to bring to the table. And so political parties should play their part. You don't want when it's like we want to elections, you are seeing women, the woman who is in the political party coming out as a presidential candidate is stepped down by the party at times, even without her knowledge. All those kinds of attitudes, we want them to stop. We want government to be responsive, and ensure that we have a country that people respect and not disrespect because we don't keep to our words and our promises. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ngozi, for that. We have this comment from Tomo Kewali Shonaya, and she says, the incoming president in his 80-page campaign action plan stated in quote, will increase women's participation in government to at least 35% of all government positions if elected. We need to remind him to keep to his promise and pledges by appointing 35% women ministers in his cabinet and also appoint 35% women to head other governmental departments and agencies. This is what Nigerian women are asking for. What do you want to see differently in the political space? Now, Barrister Masha Abubakar, I'm going to come back to you in this regard. We have political parties say they have different percentage that they've allocated to women, but we don't get to see them fielding these women when it's time for the elections. Is there some kind of legal action that should be taken against these parties to ensure that it starts from the party? Because most women will complain about the internal politics that start in the party. So we don't get to see a lot of women out there. So what would you say to this? Is there any step that can be taken in this regard legally?
Yes, quite frankly, I think prior to the general elections during the electionary campaign, we did advise that this judgment should be reached out as a form of a negotiating tool with the political parties who were conversing and seeking for the vote of women prior to the general elections. As you may recall, in 2015 and 2019, it was a promise that was made by General Muhammadu Buhari before the elections of 2015 that we used in court against him, where we did submit that President Buhari, having made a promise that he was going to come to that upon that if he gets elected and he gets the women vote in Nigeria, that is going to implement the 35% affirmative action. So it was on that premise and the promise that he made in 2014, 2015 that we approached the court of law. And the court agreed with us that, yes, you made a promise to these women that if they did support you, you would implement this particular policy of government, since government is a continuum, that once you've made that particular promise, you are stopped in law from denying making such a promise, or you are stopped from going ahead subsequently to do something else, because they have, on the basis of your promise to them, given something to you, expecting that you would do something you already promised them. And it was on that basis that the court agreed with us and gave that judgment. That was part of the reasons why that the court gave that judgment. So it was expected that we would have reached out to more political parties, particularly the parties in the state and at the center, where they are quite very strong, to extract similar promises from them, to the effect that, well, you're asking for our support, and then we could have documented some of this outreach and interface with them that, well, you're asking for our support. If we do oblige and avail your support, what is the need for Nigerian women? I mean, we have to be more proactive in pushing some of these things. Otherwise, because the party has constitutions, has their own constitution, has their own guidelines that guide the activities and their policies. So it will be much more difficult now to want to impress on those parties. Well, I think there are parties, so I think there's one or two parties, the AAC, I think Chiwari's party are one of that have made it part of their constitution, promising to yield to women, or have a policy statement promising to yield to women certain percentage, or promising to implement the 35% affirmative action if they eventually get elected into government. So I think these are things we should look at. We can also interface with the political parties, reach out to them and asking them to ensure that this particular judgment is recognized in their party's constitution, and then if they ever get to be in government at any material time, they should ensure that they comply with this judgment. Although the political parties were not parties to the state suits, but since it's the judgment of court, I think they can also show good faith by making the pronouncements by the court part of their party's manifesto and part of the party's constitution too. So I think this is also very important. It's also, nothing good in this life comes easy. Nothing good has been achieved on a platter of gold. I think we also have to up our games in ensuring that we embark on the appropriate advocacy, the appropriate reach out to some of these institutions and parties and individuals who have the wherewithal to influence some of these things to ensure that this 35%, I mean, is quite very low. I mean, the government also looked at it in a way and said, well, it's even equality of the sexes, so why should you even give 35% action? Why not even equality? The judge also said that too in a part of the judgment. So I think we should reach out and say, well, what we're asking for is not up to what's already yielded to you. And besides, over the years, right from independence, we've had less than 20% representation for women at any level of government in this country. And this is quite very sad. Nigeria is the giant of Africa. We cannot be giants by mouth. We must be giants in action and in deeds. There are smaller countries in Africa, Senegal, Gabon, South Africa, that have achieved much more. So why should Nigerian case be different? Why are we giants? Why are we leaders in this continent? We cannot show good example by creating the appropriate space and showing to the world that we do indeed really are giants in words and then giants in deeds. So I think it's important that we reach out to these political parties in ensuring that they comply with this particular judgment and they comply with the law, because this judgment is derived from the law. There's a law in chapter 4, section 42. There's a law in section 17 of the Constitution. I mean, there are laws in this country in section 147 that clearly mandates the compliance with some of these things we're asking for from these people in government. So I think it's important that we up this game, we up the advocacy, and we create and we further reach out to persons who could influence, so that we can have these policies and this judgment implemented and complied with by all and sundry. I mean, even in the states, like some of the state governments too, also need to comply and start showing the lead in complying with this particular, because it's almost not if we have the federal government comply with this, and then the states are also not recognizing this, because governance is not just at the center alone. There's also governance at the local level, at the state level. So this we also have to reach out to, so that we can ensure that the right things are done across board, both at the state level and local government level and at the federal level. It's important, it's imperative, and we should think positively towards ensuring that we get some of these things done appropriately across board in all spheres.
Thank you so much, Barrister Marshall Abubakar, for that. Yes, Giants of Africa walk the talk. In case you're just joining us, 1 year after victory on 35% affirmative action, that's what we're discussing today. And we have Mufolias Fijabi, CEO, Nigerian Women Trust Fund, Ngozi Wosujuba, Project Director of Vision Spring Initiatives, and Barrister Marshall Abubakar, Director of Human Rights, Falana and Falana Chambers. Yes, we have some hands up and would like to take comments from participants. Yes, Kikimodi, you have the mic. You can go ahead and make your comments.
Thank you so much, and thanks to the amazing women that kind of make sure that we don't forget about these conversations. So the one thing I've learned from Women Radio is that gender equality has to be cultural. So a presidential aspirants cannot just come from nowhere and promise us 50% or even 60% affirmative action when the past 30 professional years we have not seen how he was very inclusive of women. And just so that it doesn't sound like words I'm saying, when you talk to journalists on a normal day and you tell them to quote women, include women as sources, they say it's hard, women don't like to talk, these things are not exactly a lie. But when you look at a radio station like Women Radio that is 100% dedicated to women, there is no day Women Radio has run out of news. So that means that before they get the job done, they have to find the woman in the story and speak to the woman. So that means that they're putting in the work, even though those obstacles are seemingly true, they have found a way to kind of, overcome those obstacles. So that's why I don't like listening to excuses from political parties and especially the people that have been voted in as leaders. It just sounds like excuses to me. If, this is side by side, the goal and the objective of your reason for being in office, you will work towards it. It's not easy, it's hard, but it's a job at the end of the day. You were elected to serve 50% you were elected to serve a country, and you cannot neglect 50% of your population. And 50% of the population are women, and you need to have that inclusive governance in women. Your whole cabinet needs to have women. For example, your campaign group doesn't have 50% women, yet you want me to believe that when you get into power, you're going to put 50% women. Where is it coming from? You can't do what you're not capable of doing. So I think for simple things like this, and I say simple because you have access to putting more women, at whatever level you are, whatever it is you're doing, you have access to put more women on. If you're an advertiser, you have access to put more women's faces, women's voices on your advert. So this doesn't require you to have a political office to implement. I think that as women voters, we need to realize the power that we have, and we need to start insisting that we see the work, so that people will not come with last-minute Microsoft slides or presentation of, and slap women from stock photos in their presentation. I put one woman in hijab, one woman. Please, let's see it in real life. We're tired of, seeing these. We're tired of seeing it on paper. What's happening to real life? Okay. So I would say, even not just women voters, voters in general, if you truly want to see a more gender equal society, I think you should start holding these politicians to a much higher standard.
All right.
Thank you very much for the work that you guys do. This has been an insightful conversation.
Thank you so much, Kiki Modi. Thank you for your comments. Yes. Buki Shunibara, yes, please, you have the mic. Go ahead and make your comment.
Thank you very much, Esther. And thanks to the Women Radio team for just constantly putting this on the front burner. I want to say first that one of the things that we are currently doing at Invictus Africa is to track, all of the campaign promises that relate to women and girls. And like Antito rightly said, one of the ones that we have included, particularly it's on page 60 and 61 of the Renewed Hope manifesto that the president-elect released. And one of the promises was this 35%. And I think one of the things that we hope that we will do better in this particular administration is not just to highlight the campaign promises, but to track them. So today we'll be releasing that of Bola Ahmed Tinubu in terms of exactly what he promised. And we're also doing the same for all of the 28 states in this regard, because like Barrister Marsha rightly said, it's not just the federal government, it is also the state government. So leading up to May 29, we will be releasing one state per day in terms of what they promised women. Now, why I'm bringing that up is because I think let's do a bit of mathematics here.
Okay.
Even the 45% that we're asking for is completely insufficient. And I'm going to bring that to the 5 gender bills. 35% of 109 women at the Senate means that we will have 38 women. We are currently talking about just 3. 35% of 360 members in the House of Reps means that we should have 126 women out of 360. Now, you know that one of the ways that we make sure that bills get passed is to have 2/3 majority. Follow me closely. One of the things that Anthony Ngozi said earlier, Madam Mufuliat said earlier, was talk about the fact that it is not just having women there, but it's also having gender-related perspective incorporated into lawmaking. Right? Security issues, what's the gender perspective? Economic issues, what's the gender perspective, and all of those things. Now, having women alone there, even if we have this 35%, does not guarantee that we are going to have those gender-sensitive bills passed. Because if we vote by 2/3 majority, it means that 2/3 in the Senate, we should have at least 72 people who are voting on a particular bill. Just take the example of the gender bills.
Okay.
And I don't want to bore us with numbers, the 5 gender bills. If you look at the way that the voting went, let me just use the reserved seat bill as an example. At the Senate, 30 people voted yes, and 58 people voted no. At the House, 81 people voted yes, and 208 people voted no. So it means that just having women alone, even if we achieve this 35%, does not mean we are going to have gender-related issues incorporated into bills separately, or even gender issues. She was talking about menstrual hygiene earlier. This is the point I'm trying to make.
Okay.
This is the point I'm trying to make. One of the things we must go for with this 35% is to make sure that we have even much more than 35%. Because don't forget that not all of the women will even vote on gender-related bills, because they themselves are inherently biased, maybe religious issues. Not every woman, for instance, will vote on abortion rights, for instance, because they are clouded also by religious factors, by their own personal bias. There are a lot of women who don't believe, for instance, that abortion rights should be granted. So you don't expect that even if we have those women in the House, they are going to vote on such bills. The 2/3 majority in the Senate means that we should have 240 people who are gender-minded enough to be able to vote on gender-related issues. These people are not just women. They are also men. Because we are not going to have 240 women. That is 2/3 of the House.
All
and
right.
we know that even all of those women will not vote. So the point I'm trying to make is, while we push for this 35%, let us also dedicate effort to transforming the men that we have. We shouldn't be having men.
Thank you so much, Buki.
Sorry.
All right.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, that was extensive. Thank you so much. Now, Mufuliat, I would like to take your comments, your final words in 30 seconds.
Okay, I won't mince words. The judgment should be implemented, starting from this current government and with the incoming government, because gender is not an issue and a one-off. Gender is a continuous process, to have a better society. So the court judgment should be upheld and should be implemented. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Yes, Ngozi, your comments, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I do hope that our listeners can also join in their voices to what we are demanding for. We are not just demanding because we are women. We are demanding because we are human beings. Everything that decisions they take, affects us. And as it is, we have right now very bad leadership. I think that we have something to contribute to make our nation a better place. And so I think that they should make an effort to ensure that we become part of that space, because we are almost half of the population of Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much. Yes, Barrister Marshall Abubakar, your final words.
I think it's a good day for the struggle to create some sort of gender parity in the country today. I think it's also a good one. The judgment, the CIGN judgment has shown that the judiciary, a veritable tool and partner in ensuring that equality are created for all parts, segments, and persons in the country. Nigeria has also shown that they can't be relied upon whenever called upon. The appeal by the office of the AGF is quite unfortunate, because we are aware that the Minister of Women Affairs reached out to the President, and the President gave his words that he's going to comply with that judgment, particularly more so that it was his initial promise. But the Minister of Justice, having decided in his wisdom to appeal the judgment, I think all eyes, all our attention now shift to the Court of Appeal. We are also hopeful for a favorable return from the Court of Appeal.
All right, and, thank you so much.
Notwithstanding,
okay,
we can continue the advocacy to ensure that that judgment, which subsists till today, is enforced and is complied with by all parties involved.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone who has taken out time out of your busy schedule to be here for us to have this conversation. We need to keep this conversation on in your different sectors, lend your voice to this to ensure that this judgment is sustained and we have Nigerian women well included in the political space in Nigeria. Thank you so much, and do have a wonderful day. My name is Esther Alaribi. Thanks to the production team. Thank you to everyone who made this happen. Thank you. Do have a good day.
WFM 91.7.